Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening up the hood of the human machine to look at the engine. And I don't mean the heart, and I don't mean the prefrontal cortex, which, it gets all the press as the CEO of the brain.
He really does.
I'm talking about the brain's actual manager.
Yeah.
The part of you that decides to push through the pain when you're running that last mile.
Yeah.
The part that instinctively reads the room when you walk into a tense meeting. The part that screams, oops, when you make a typo, and then, forces you to stop and fix it.
It is a fascinating and I think often misunderstood piece of neural real estate. We are talking about the Anterior Cingulate Cortex, or the ACC.
The ACC.
And you are so right to distinguish it from the CEO. If the prefrontal cortex is the CEO setting the grand strategy, the ACC is the COO, the Chief Operating Officer.
It's the COO. I like that.
It's the one making sure the resources are actually there to execute the plan, moment by moment.
The COO of the brain. But looking at this mountain of papers we have today, this COO seems to have a very chaotic job description.
It's a lot.
I mean, we're talking about empathy, we're talking about error detection, we're talking about tenacity. It sounds like it's doing everything at once.
Well, it feels that way because it is what we call an integrative hub. That's really the core theme for today's deep dive.
An integrative hub?
The ACC isn't just doing one thing, it is the bridge. It connects the, let's call them the hot emotional centers of the brain with the cold calculating centers.
Okay.
And to navigate this, we have a massive stack of research. We are pulling from papers ranging from 2013 all the way up to, believe it or not, 2025.
And as always, we have a ground rule for this deep dive. We aren't guessing. We are not doing pop psychology. Every single claim we make today is backed by a specific citation.
That's right.
We're going to name the authors and the dates so you know exactly where this intel is coming from.
Precisely. We're going to start with the structure, the actual anatomy, because you really can't understand the function without the form. Then we'll look at the cold side decision-making errors, that kind of thing. Then the hot side social connection and empathy.
And then my personal favorite, which you pointed out, the tenacious brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And finally, we have to talk about what happens when this system goes offline. Pathology, depression, anxiety, the really serious stuff.
Okay, let's unpack this. And we have to start with the geography. When I hear cortex, I think of the wrinkly outer layer of the brain. But the ACC seems buried.
It is.
If I can unzip my forehead and look inside, where am I finding this thing?
You wouldn't see it from the outside at all. You have to go deep, right into the middle. Imagine the corpus callosum.
Okay, that's the big bundle of fibers connecting the two halves of the brain.
The thick white bundle of nerve fibers, connecting your left hemisphere to your right. It's shaped kind of like a C on its side.
Right.
The anterior cingulate cortex forms an arc specifically around the genu, which is just Latin for knee. So the knee of that corpus callosum, it's facing the medial wall of the frontal lobes.
So it's tucked right in the center, literally hugging the bridge between the two halves of the brain.
Correct. And this anatomical description is absolutely crucial. It's highlighted in a lot of work, but specifically papers by Burgos Robles et al. From 2019 and Monosov et al. From 2020.
And its location is the first clue to what it does.
It's the first huge clue to its function. Because it sits right there in the middle, it has prime access to information coming from the emotional centers below it, like the amygdala and all the cognitive centers in front of it, like the prefrontal cortex.
It's physically positioned to be the mediator. It's the go-between.
The ultimate go-between.
Now, I want to get into the weeds on the anatomy for a second, because I read something in Apps et al. From 2016 that really confused me.
Okay.
They make this huge distinction between the sulcus and the gyrus. Now, my Bio 101 class taught me that the brain is just bumps and grooves. The gyrus is the bump, the sulcus is the groove.
That's right.
Does it really matter which part of the fold we are talking about here? It seems so minor.
It matters immensely. I mean, in fact, Apps et al. Argue pretty forcefully that if you ignore this distinction, you just completely mess up the data.
Really?
Yeah, they found a clear anatomical dissociation. The bump, which is the anterior cingulate gyrus, or ACCG, has a completely different connection profile than the groove, the anterior cingulate sulcus, or ACCs.
Okay, so they aren't just neighbors. They're doing totally different jobs.
Wow.
What's the breakdown?
So think of the gyrus, the ACCC, as the social specialist.
Social film.
Apps et al. Found that this area is specifically specialized for social cognition. It's for tracking the motivation of others.
Of other people.
Yes. It connects to all these other brain areas that value social information. On the other hand, the sulcus, the ACCs, appears to be much more general.
Okay.
It's involved in tracking value and errors, sure, but it doesn't seem to have that specific social tuning. It's more about, is this good for me, not what is he thinking?
That is wild. So on the surface of this one little strip of tissue, the bump is literally worrying about whether my friend is mad at me, and the groove right next to it is calculating a math problem.
That is a simplified way to view it, but
Yeah.
the principle is accurate, and it gets even more detailed than that.
Yeah, of course it does.
If you look at a paper by Burgos Robles et al. From 2019, they discuss the microscopic layers of the cells themselves. They point out that the ACC contains agranular or dysgranular areas.
Agranular. That sounds like complete jargon. Translate that for us.
So it refers to the layers of the cortex. Most of the modern human cortex has 6 very clear layers, including a granular layer 4 that's really important for processing sensory input.
Right.
A granular just means it lacks that layer. In evolutionary terms, a granular cortex is phylogenetically older. It's ancient brain tissue.
So we are literally running ancient hardware in this critical spot.
Part of it is ancient. But here's the twist. Humans and other primates also have granular areas in the ACC. The relevance of this, according to Burgos Robles, is that this structure suggests a hierarchy.
A hierarchy of what?
A hierarchy of processing. The ACC handles fundamental primal drives emotions, basic motivation, right alongside complex modern cognition. It's physically mixing the old brain and the new brain in a single hub.
Which would explain why gut feelings often feel so physical and overwhelming. The ACC is processing the logic, but is doing it on tissue that is hardwired for primal survival.
Exactly. And this brings us to the last big anatomical split before we really get into the functions. There's a very recent paper, Zhu et al., from 2025.
Wow, 2025.
Yes, looking ahead. They used a technique called connectivity-based parcellation. Basically, they mapped how every little bit of the ACV connects to the rest of the brain.
And what did they find?
They found a clear, bipartite dorsiventral functional partition.
Okay, that is a mouthful. Let's break that down. Dorsiventral just means top to bottom, right?
Yes. Dorsal is the top part, like a shark's dorsal fin, and ventral is the bottom part, like the belly.
Okay.
And Zha et al. Found that the dorsal ACC, the DACC, is strongly linked to cognitive control. That's the cold side we were talking about. The ventral ACC, the VACC, is linked to emotional processing. That's the hot side.
And I saw that Selahinejad et al. From 2023, they reinforce this too. They call it the prefrontal cingulate network.
Yes, that paper is very clear on this. You have hot executive functions in that ventral side-handling emotional regulation, gut feelings, and cold executive functions in the dorsal and lateral side-handling planning, logic, error correction.
So when we talk about the ACC, we have to be specific. Are we talking about the hot emotional belly or the cold calculating top?
You have to be. They're doing very different, though, related jobs.
Okay, let's start with the cold talk then. The dorsal ACC. This is the part of me that makes me rewrite an email 3 times because I'm worried about a single typo.
That is the error detection system in action. Levin et al., in a 2013 paper, described the ACC as an integrative hub for this exact purpose.
So how does it detect the error?
Well, they discussed 2 specific electrical signals that the ACC generates, which we can actually measure with an EEG cap on someone's head.
Brainwaves.
Specific event-related potentials, yeah. The first one is called the ERN, which stands for error-related negativity.
ERN.
This happens milliseconds after you make a mistake. It's totally internal. You press the wrong button on the keyboard and zap, your ACC fires an ERN before you've even seen the result.
That's that sinking feeling of, oh no, before you even see what happened.
It's exactly that feeling. It's the brain's prediction of what should happen failing. The second signal is the FRN, or feedback-related negativity.
Okay, FRN.
This happens when the world gives you bad news. You submit the online form and you get that big red access denied message. The ACC fires the FRN.
So to put it simply, ERN is I think I messed up, and FRN is, yep, the world is telling me I definitely messed up.
That's a perfect way to put it. And Levin et al. Argue this is absolutely essential for learning. If you don't have these signals, you just don't adjust your behavior. You keep making the same mistakes.
Right.
But here is the critical part, and this is really important. It's not just about noticing the error. It's about updating the strategy.
Right, because noticing a fire in your kitchen is pretty useless if you don't then go grab the fire extinguisher.
That is precisely where this paper by Chen et al. From 2024 comes in. This is a fascinating study they did using mice.
Okay.
They had these mice performing auditory tasks. They'd hear a sound and have to choose to go left or right to get a reward. Pretty standard stuff. But then the researchers would, without warning, switch the rules. It's science.
Yeah.
But what they found was that individual neurons in the ACC were, and I'm quoting here, integrating outcome information.
What does that mean in practice?
It means they weren't just firing during the error. The neurons were holding on to that information to update the value representations for the next trial.
So the neuron is basically writing a little memo to itself that says, hey, last time we went left on that sound, we got nothing. Next time, we should probably try go on right.
Essentially, yes, it's learning. And to prove the ACC was the driver of this, Chen et al. Used optogenetics.
I love optogenetics. Sounds like something straight out of sci-fi. Can you explain how that works for the listener?
Of course. It involves genetically modifying specific neurons in the brain so that they express a light-sensitive protein.
Correct.
This basically allows researchers to shine a tiny laser through a fiber optic cable into the brain and literally turn those specific neurons on or off with a switch.
So they can toggle the mouse's ACC off like a light bulb?
They did exactly that. And when they suppressed the ACC during that outcome phase, right when the mouse found out if it was right or wrong, the mice became terrible at switching strategies.
And they just got stuck.
They got stuck. When the rules changed, the mice just kept doing the old thing over and over again, even though it wasn't working. Chen et al. Concluded that the ACC is essential for what they call feedback-driven iteration.
Feedback-driven iteration.
Without it, you are just a robot running a broken script. You can't adapt.
That is profound. It means our adaptability, our ability to roll with the punches and learn from life, is physically located in this feedback loop in the ACC.
And that adaptability extends beyond just simple tasks. It actually extends to how we gather information in the first place. This brings us to Monosov et al. From 2020, who frame our daily decisions through the lens of foraging.
Foraging. I usually think of squirrels looking for nuts, or maybe me looking for snacks in the pantry at midnight.
It's the same neural mechanism. I mean it. In the wild, an animal has to constantly decide, do I stay here and exploit this berry bush, or do I leave and explore for a new one?
Right, the explore-exploit trade-off.
It's the fundamental economic decision of survival. And Monosov's team argues that the ACC is tracking these key control variables, like reward uncertainty and punishment uncertainty.
So it's constantly calculating the odds. If I stay here, I might get one more berry. If I leave, I might find 10 berries. Or I might get eaten by a bear.
Exactly. And the ACC helps resolve that uncertainty by driving information seeking. It literally pushes you to explore, to check things out, to reduce the unknown.
Okay, that makes sense.
But, and this is the part that's really provocative, Monosov et al. Raise a point about the modern world. They hypothesize that if uncertainty is irreducible.
Irreducible, meaning you can't solve it.
Meaning no matter how much you search, you can't find the answer. The uncertainty just doesn't go away. They suggest this mechanism becomes maladaptive.
Wait, this sounds like the internet. We are constantly foraging for information, scrolling through news feeds, checking comments, looking for the right answer.
Yes. And how often do you find a final satisfying resolution? The uncertainty about the economy or politics or the future, it's often irreducible. But your ACC is still running that ancient foraging program. It's screaming, search more! The answer must be here.
And when you don't find it, the ACC just spins up even more anxiety because the uncertainty isn't resolved.
That is precisely the hypothesis. Monosov and his team suggest that this primal drive to resolve uncertainty, which kept us alive on the savannah, might be a key driver of the modern anxiety epidemic in a world of infinite, unresolved information.
That is terrifyingly relatable. I think my ACC is definitely overworked.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pivot. We've talked about the cold, calculating, foraging brain. Now I want to talk about the hot brain, empathy, connection.
Right.
You mentioned earlier that the bump, the ACCG, is the social specialist.
That's right. And this brings us back to that great 2016 paper by Apps et al. They proposed what they call the MOVE-E framework for the anterior cingulate gyrus.
MOVE.
Yeah.
M-O-V-E. What's the acronym stand for?
Motivation, valuation, and error. But, and this is the key, it's all specifically applied to others.
So it's doing the same calculations we just talked about, value, error, but it's doing them for other people. It's running a simulation of their brain.
Exactly. Apps and his colleagues suggest the ACCG is constantly trying to estimate how motivated someone else is. It's running a simulation of their mind. Is he going to reach for that cup of coffee? Is she trying to leave this boring conversation?
Okay.
And the error part is crucial. It calculates a social prediction error.
Give me an example of a social prediction error. That sounds like a Tuesday for me.
Let's say you tell a joke. Your brain predicts that I will laugh. That's your model of me in this moment.
Right.
Instead, I just stare at you blankly.
Ouch.
Yeah. That is a massive prediction error. Your ACCG lights up like a Christmas tree. It sends out a signal that says, model incorrect, update strategy immediately. Maybe don't tell that joke again.
So it's the same internal mechanism as the mouse realizing the food reward is moved, but it's applied to social dynamics.
It's the exact same principle. And this must be tied to empathy, right? If I can model your motivation, I can probably model your pain.
It is directly tied. In that 2013 Levin et al. Paper, they also discuss the pain network.
We know the rostral ACC fires when you yourself feel pain, but it also fires when you watch a loved one in pain. This is the literal, I feel your pain circuitry.
It is, but, and this is a part that Levin highlights that might make you a bit uncomfortable, this empathy response is not universal. It's not a blanket thing. It is heavily modulated by context.
What kind of context are we talking about?
Moral judgment.
Oh.
In these studies, if you watch a pro-social person in pain, so someone who played a game fairly with you beforehand, your ACC fires strongly. You feel for them.
Okay.
But if you watch an antisocial person in pain, someone who cheated you or was mean, the ACC response is significantly reduced. Sometimes it's not there at all.
So my brain is actively deciding who deserves my empathy. It's making a moral calculation on the fly.
It is. Levin and the team argue that the ACC integrates high-level social background into these very basic visceral responses. It's not just a reflex. It's a calculated allocation of your emotional resources. That's ruthless, but I guess it's efficient.
From an evolutionary standpoint, why waste precious energy feeling bad for the guy who is actively trying to steal your food?
Good point. And this must extend to learning, too. We don't just feel for others, we learn from them.
Absolutely. Burgos-Roble et al. From 2019 discuss observational learning. We don't just learn by doing, we learn by watching. They explain that the ACC connects with the amygdala, often via another region, the orbitofrontal cortex, to process the value of social signals.
So if I see you eat a berry from a bush and then you make a disgusted face, my ACC and amygdala have a quick conversation. They say, tag that berry as bad. Do not eat.
Precisely. It allows for this incredible transfer of information, fear, alertness, affiliation, disgust, without me having to experience the risk myself.
Which is the entire basis of culture, really. We don't all have to reinvent the wheel or, eat poison berry.
And we can also learn to help. There's a paper by Lockwood et al. From 2020 that asked a really critical question. Is the ACC necessary for learning to reward others?
This is pro-social behavior again. Helping. Sharing.
Yes, and they found that the ACC contains neurons that are specialized for processing information about others' rewards, and these are distinct from the neurons that process your own rewards.
So there's literally a what's good for me neuron and a what's good for you neuron, and they're in different spots.
In a sense, yes. Lockwood's work suggests that if this region is damaged, or if these other reward neurons aren't firing correctly, you lose the ability to track the value of things for other people.
And if you can't do that,
you become unable to cooperate effectively because you simply cannot compute what's in it for them.
It effectively makes you a sociopath, or at least profoundly socially blind.
It certainly makes you socially incompetent. The drive to help, to cooperate, it seems to be rooted right there.
Okay, so we have the cold accountant and the hot socialite part to the ACC. Now I want to get to the part of the outline that really excited me the most. Section 4. The tenacious brain.
Ah, yes.
This comes from a review by Turtoglu et al. From 2020.
This is a beautiful paper, just a really elegant synthesis. Turtoglu and her team focus on a very specific subregion, the Anterior Cingulate Cortex, or AMCC.
We're moving back a little bit, mid-cingulate.
Just a little bit posterior to the genu, the knee we talked about. This area is unique. Turtoglu defines tenacity as persistence in the face of challenge, and they argue the AMCC is the engine of that persistence.
Why this specific spot? What's so special about it? Is it just full of grit juice or something?
No, it's not magic. It's all about the connectivity. It's about its location. Turtoglu's review explains that the AMCC sits at a crucial four-way intersection in the brain.
A four-way intersection.
It connects, number 1, motor planning systems for movement. Number 2, executive function networks for goals.
Yeah.
Number 3, sensory integration areas for sight and sound. And number 4, and this is the key, interoception.
Interoception, we mentioned that before. That's the body sensing its own internal state.
Right. Your heart rate, your breath, your muscle fatigue, your hunger, your pain. The AMCC is one of the only places in the brain where the high-level goal meets the low-level body.
Okay, so paint a picture for me. Imagine I'm running a marathon. I'm at mile 20. My executive function is screaming, "Finish the race!"
Right.
But my interoceptive system is screaming, "Legs are on fire, lungs are burning, please stop."
And the AMCC is the referee between those two signals. Tuatoglu et al. Describe its function as performing cost-benefit computations specifically related to energy.
Energy.
Yes, metabolic cost. It predicts the energy requirements for the task ahead. It asks, in that moment at mile 20, is the predicted reward of finishing this race worth the very real metabolic cost of this immense pain?
That is fascinating. So what we call willpower isn't some mystical character trait. It's a budget meeting happening in my brain.
It is biological accounting. It's that simple and that complex. If the AMCC calculates that the reward outweighs the cost, it sends a powerful go signal to the motor cortex to keep moving. It mobilizes the energy. That is tenacity.
And if it decides the cost is just too high, if the pain is too much and the reward too far away,
Then you quit. Or, in clinical terms, you might see what we call apathy or withdrawal. The paper suggests that when we see people who are labeled as lazy or apathetic, it might not be a moral failing at all.
it's a calculation problem.
It could be a dysfunction in this AMCC calculation. Their brain might be chronically overestimating the cost or underestimating the reward.
That reframes everything. It's
Yeah.
not about being weak-willed. It's about having a very risk-averse accountant living in your head.
Exactly. The AMCC is what allows us to mobilize our bodily resources to meet a difficult challenge. Without it, we would just stop the second things got uncomfortable. We'd never achieve anything hard.
Which brings us to the inevitable and serious question. What happens when this machinery breaks? We've hinted at apathy, but let's look at the broader picture of well-being and pathology.
This is a very important section. We have some heavy papers here. We're looking at Green et al. From 2025, Zhu et al. Also from 2025, and Yi et al. From 2024.
Let's start with that Green et al. Paper from 2025. They tried to map well-being in the brain, but they didn't just ask people, "Are you happy?" Did they?
No, it was much more nuanced. They broke well-being into 5 specific domains: family, stress, confidence, impact, and feeling loved. They wanted to see if these different flavors of well-being mapped to the ACC.
Did they?
Not all of them, which is just as important. For example, feelings about family relationships were most strongly associated with the precuneus, a region that's all about self-referential processing.
Okay.
But dealing with stress was strongly associated with the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the DLPFC.
The DLPFC, that's the cold, hard logic center we talked about.
Right. And this implies that dealing with stress is fundamentally a cognitive control task. It's not an emotion to be felt. It's a problem to be solved with a strategy.
And didn't Green et al. Find something specific about young adults?
They did. They noted that the young adults in their study were the least positive about their ability to deal with stress. It was the one domain where they desired the most change in their lives.
So they want to fix it. But the neural pathway required, that cognitive control pathway, might be the one that's struggling or still developing.
That's a very plausible interpretation. Now, moving to Zhu et al. And Yi et al., we get into major depressive disorder, or MDD. We often hear about depression as a chemical imbalance, but these papers are looking at the brain's actual structure.
And the Yi et al. Paper from 2024, it specifically looked at suicide risk. That is a dark but obviously necessary topic. What did they find?
It's crucial research. They compared 3 groups: healthy controls, MDD patients without suicidal ideation, and MDD patients with suicidal ideation. They found that the group with suicidal ideation had significantly reduced gray matter volume in the ACC.
Reduced volume. So the tissue itself was physically smaller or less dense?
Yes.
Yeah.
The hub we've been talking about was compromised. And when you connect this to another paper, Barreros et al. From 2025, who discuss the rostral ACC.
Who are ACC?
Yes. The RACC, as a key node in the brain's default mode network, the DMN, it starts to make a sad kind of sense. The rostral ACC helps process emotion and self-referential thought. If that node is atrophied or disconnected, the brain can get stuck in these horrible negative ruminations without the ability to switch tracks.
That is just heartbreaking. It's a hardware failure in the worst possible place.
It is. In treatment-resistant depression, Barreros and colleagues note that dysfunction right here impairs emotion processing so profoundly that it can become almost impossible to feel better because the very machinery needed to process that feeling is offline.
Is there any good news in this section? Is this structural damage permanent?
There is hope. The brain is plastic, it can change. A study by Carlson et al. From 2022 explored neuroplasticity in the context of anxiety.
Okay.
They used a technique called attention bias modification, or ABM.
ABM, what is that? Sounds like some kind of training.
It's a cognitive training program, yeah. It basically trains people to shift their attention away from threatening stimuli like angry faces in a crowd and toward neutral or positive ones. It's designed to break the brain's habit of constantly looking for danger.
So it's like a workout for your attention. And did it change the brain?
It did. Carlson's team found that this training could actually change the gray matter volume and the functional connectivity of the ACC in high-anxiety individuals. The structure itself changed.
So you can literally work out your ACC. You can rebuild it.
In a way, yes. By repeatedly forcing the brain to route attention down a different, less anxious path, you strengthen the underlying structure. It shows that even if the volume is reduced or the connectivity is off, it is not necessarily a fixed state. It can change with targeted training.
That is a huge relief. Okay, so we've covered the anatomy, the cold decisions, the hot empathy, the tenacity engine, and the pathology. Before we wrap this all up, I want to try to synthesize this.
Good idea.
Because we have a few papers. Policia et al. From 2022. Sasaoka et al. From 2024 that try to give us a big picture view.
Right. Policia et al. Offer what they call a unifying view. They describe the ACC as the interface where motor control, drive, and cognition all meet.
The interface, the central meeting point.
Think about it. You have a thought, that's cognition. You have a desire, that's drive. But those are just ghosts in the machine until you actually move your body, which is motor control.
Right.
The ACC is the gearbox. It's where the intention finally becomes the action. It translates the I want into the I do.
That explains why it's involved in literally everything from empathy to math. You need to act on both of those things.
Exactly. And Sasaoka et al. From 2024 at a really niche but I think illustrative point. They found the ACC is involved in what they call interoexteroceptive integration for spatial transformations.
Okay, that's jargon again. Spatial transformations, like playing Tetris in your head.
It is exactly like playing Tetris in your head. But think about why the ACC would be involved. To rotate that Tetris block in your mind, you have to understand where you are relative to the object.
Ah, okay.
You have to connect your internal sense of self and your body's position, that's interoception, with the external world of the screen, exteroception. The ACC is the bridge that allows you to center yourself in the world to manipulate it.
And finally, we have Xiao et al. From 2024 talking about reward bias. We talked about rewarding others, but what about our own biases?
So Xiao and his team identified a specific brainwave frequency, beta activity in the ACC.
Beta waves, that's a fast frequency,
Yeah.
usually associated with active thinking, right?
Relatively fast, yes. They found that the amount of beta activity in the ACC acts as a mediator for our reward biases. It helps encode our preference toward rewards.
So when I irrationally choose the lottery ticket, the option that has a high payout, even if it's super risky.
That's the beta waves in your ACC humming along, encoding that preference, pushing you toward the big, shiny reward.
It's amazing that we can pinpoint a personality quirk like being a risk taker down to a specific electrical oscillation in a specific patch of cortex.
It just shows how mechanistic this manager in our head really is.
So let's bring it all home. We've covered a massive amount of ground. If the listener walks away with just a few key bullet points to sound smart at a dinner party, what are they?
Okay, the dinner party distillation. I like it. Number 1, the ACC is the bridge.
The bridge.
It physically and functionally connects the emotional ventral brain with the thinking dorsal brain.
Yeah.
You can't separate reason from emotion. They are integrated right here. That's from papers like Selahinejad and Toratiglu.
Okay, number 2.
The ACC is the monitor. It generates those ERN and FRN signals when we make mistakes or get bad feedback, and it forces us to update our mental models of the world. That's Lavin and Chen. It is the engine of learning from our failures.
Number 3.
It is the socialite, specifically the ACCG, the gyrus. It tracks the motivation of others, and it modulates our empathy based on social context and moral judgment. That's APS et al.
And number 4, the big one.
It is the tenacious brain.
Right.
The AMCC budgets our energy. It weighs the cost of pain against the value of the goal to determine if we should quit or persist. That's all from Toratiglu et al.
That is an absolute powerhouse of a brain region.
It is completely indispensable.
I want to leave our listener with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on this week. We talked about Monosov et al. From 2020 and that foraging concept.
Yes. This is the one that keeps me up at night, I think.
In the wild, foraging has an endpoint. You find the berry bush or you go home hungry. The uncertainty is resolved one way or another.
Right.
But in our modern world, we are surrounded by infinite information, and it feels like infinite uncertainty.
And if Monosov is right, our ACC is constantly tracking that irreducible uncertainty, and it's screaming at us to forage for a resolution that, well, a resolution that just doesn't exist.
So the final question is this. Is the modern anxiety epidemic actually a crisis of an overworked anterior cingulate cortex? Is our ancient biological hardware trying to budget energy for a digital world that never, ever stops changing?
It is a hypothesis that is worth taking very seriously. We are running a hunter-gatherer operating system in a world of infinite data streams. The manager is simply overwhelmed.
Something to think about the next time you find yourself doom scrolling at 11 p.m. That's your ACC trying to save you, but it's just getting lost in the digital weeds.
Indeed.
As you go about your week, try to notice your own ACC moments. That feeling of resistance when you don't want to go to the gym, that's your AMCC calculating the energy cost. The flinch when you make a mistake, that's your earn firing. And that warmth you feel when a friend succeeds, that's your ACCG tracking their reward.
It's all happening right there, right behind your forehead.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.